All right, what's going on? This your boy Kobe Rise and Rise. We back at it again with a banger. You dig what I'm saying? So I appreciate everybody for joining in on this live, right? And so I like to give some great game because as you know, me and Showtime we have the fitness thing going on. But again, this is an academy, right? So the academy is about a school, it's about teaching, right? And so I remember last time we talked about combat fitness. So shout out to my boy Trey. He's doing the MMA thing this month. So we gave tips on just self improvement when it comes to the combat side of things, right? So, as you guys know, I box. I'll be boxing actually Sunday down in Tiger Boxing Gym, getting in there with my boys Mason and the King. So if anybody's in the area, go ahead, come through. It's going to be a great workout, right? So I also want to give a different side, right? When it comes to self improvement, I'm talking about your lifestyle, right? This is everything across the board. This is your personal life. This is your corporate life, right? Your career life or what you choose and your purpose. Because all these things matter when it comes to improving who you are um, internally, externally, and maybe you can improve on things that you may not necessarily know you need to improve of, but maybe you've been assessed and this is something that you can improve on too. So we want to talk about it all. And I mean, I think I got the best person on this thing, man. So Aaron, man, just introduce yourself to the people and just give yourself a elevator pitch on who you are and what you do, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kobe. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Wishing you well on this Wednesday. My name's Aaron Perlman. I live in New York City. I had the pleasure of actually partnering with Kobe and coaching him throughout his career a little bit during the COVID season. So I got to know Kobe very well, wonderful human being. A little bit about my credentials, my background. I have blend in both business and psychology. So I have a bachelor's from Bentley University in economics and finance, as well as a master's degree from Columbia University in organizational psychology. So I started and run my own coaching firm called Noble Leadership, where we focus on transformational change from a holistic level. So focusing not just on the skill sets and the behaviors, but also the mindsets and the emotional world of people so that they can live better lives. So that's a little bit about me, Kobe. I'll pass it back to you and your
Yeah.
just awesome, sweet, color changing computer.
Hey man, that's that camera, man. I've been working on trying to get a good camera because at first I was using like just an iPhone, like everybody else, right? So I said, let me just do something a little different. So I wanted to just kind of step it up a little bit, and just do some different things.
I
So
love it.
yeah, that's where we are, man.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I like how you kicked us off. I know that the Rise and Rise Academy has a lot to do with fitness, right?
Yep.
And so you talk about combat fitness, you talk about health. I know that you're very big on providing practical tips as well on like plant-based diets, how to get enough protein when you're trying to stay lean on that regard. And so one thing that I like to pose to people, and I know we talked a lot about when we were working together, was this concept of mental fitness,
Yep.
right? So, like, usually when we talk about like coaching or therapy or whatever mindset, which is a term that I think become rather cliche, but it is a good term, is this idea of like I'm not good enough, I need to improve. And so I know that's something that I've been affected with, like this idea of I'm not good enough. That's why I work so hard. And it's like it becomes this like circle, this rat race of like I try to improve because I'm not good enough. And then once I improve, well, I still need to keep improving because I'm still not good enough. So what I think can help people get out of that like rat race, that circle that just keeps going on forever, is this idea if we shift away from like I need to improve because I need to improve over to this idea of like mental fitness, the
Mm.
same way that you would with your physical fitness. Like you don't go to the gym because well, you go to the gym for a lot of reasons, but like part of it's to improve fitness. You're not starting from a place of negativity, but rather you're already at a place of positivity, just furthering that journey along.
That's a fact. Yeah, and I remember us actually having that conversation, and you're right because um, you start off in levels, especially when it comes to improvement. Like we get to a certain level, and then now it's like, okay, we can get to that next step. It's kind of like walking up a stair step. You have to take one step at a time, and the next step is higher than the next step. But you can't get to the higher one until you get to the rest of the stairs or keep climbing it, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's why I chose a great thumbnail when it comes to the first step is good, the next step is better, and the next step is the best. And you want to keep elevating. You dig from there. And so, I like what you said when it comes to mental fitness because at the end of the day, it's to me, it's all fitness, right?
Yeah.
I think it's improving on your mental health of fitness, meaning this like how I look at it is you want to start somewhere. It's like for me, it's boxing. We don't know, or the coach doesn't know where to start you at unless he knows where you are first. And so now he needs to know where we can see improvement, right? So let's say if the jab looks good, but if there's a somebody in my face, the jab looks ugly, right? So that's where we can improve on. So now we can improve on this, right? And that's fitness. That just takes consistency, you dig, and um continuously being disciplined because you want to continue to work even though you don't feel like necessarily working,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's just it's finding that fine line balance. And just a base generalization for me is it's a thing that it's a thing that makes you better or maybe better than someone else. But I think you can always improve. I don't think necessarily the best is the ceiling, right? I think people put a cap on themselves. I think they can always grow.
Yeah.
Even LeBron James, I mean, I think he's one of the best players of this time, and even he can improve. And so I always don't want to put a ceiling on it because there's no telling how high we can go, right? So the cliche term "sky's the limit." I mean, that pretty much tells you right there, right? So what's above the sky? Well, you got the outer space. So
We're going,
it
we're
keeps
going
going from
James
there.
Hub or
Always,
James
man.
Webb Telescope depths, right? And that's going to be LeBron James vertical leap pretty soon past the sky, deep into space.
No, that's a
No, I
fact.
love
Now
it
you
though,
talking about
man.
the gym.
This brings me back to like when we were working together. Like you're just such a positive force, man. Like talking to you like before we hopped on today, like the first thing you said to me is like, "Man, I am so blessed." And I think you bring that into everything you do. Like you're happy to be a part of the game, whatever game that could be. It's boxing, it's IT, volunteer work. Like you really bring that positive mindset. And within in the spirit of what we're talking about today, like usually when we talk about like the term resilience, right? So I think this is really important because it doesn't get talked about enough. Or if it is, there's kind of this like stank on it. Is like when we talk about discipline, we talk about consistency. It tends to be this like stoic, grit your teeth thing. I don't want to do this, but I do it anyway. And there's so much resilience and positivity.
Mm,
There is so much resilience and positivity, so
that's good.
much so. Positive psychology, like one of the types of psychology that's become more popular over time, especially since the 90s, that has huge contracts with the military because they find it's a really big, not deterrent, what word am I looking for? It's like a way to protect against PTSD.
Mm,
The more positive we are, the better tools that we have to deal with adversity. And so that's cool. I didn't know you do boxing. I do kickboxing myself actually too, so I'm pretty familiar
okay.
with it. Yeah, yeah, it's super
Yeah,
fun. It's a great
that's
workout
dope.
too.
I love
But
it.
there's something to be said too, like when you're just doing it for the journey. Like I want to do this for years, so I'm not really worried about like the about getting it right. And I think it's like one of those areas in my life where I really don't care if I get it right because I'm not like pressured that like this class my jab has to be perfect or not. And I think that allows me to be a little more like receptive to feedback because I'm like, I don't care. I just want to get better over time. Like I don't care about getting
Mm.
the recognition or anything like that. I'm usually like completely dead by the end of it too, which means I have
Man,
to work
it's
It's
probably one of the best workouts ever.
yeah,
Combat sports in general is a workout. Like for those that don't know, it works you.
yeah, I can trust that. I did Kempo karate, like starting at 3.5 when I was a kid. And, like I worked my way up to black belt, and I used to just be like so obsessed with like getting that next belt and like getting the recognition for the performance. And now I just want to be like good at fighting. Like I don't care if I'm a white belt for
Yeah.
the rest of my life. If I can kick someone's ass, then that's the reward in itself.
No, that's
Hopefully,
real.
I never have to, but if I have to, then it's good to know how to.
So you a black belt, like how? So you are a black belt then, right? And
I guess it's like we're talking like a long time ago, and I didn't keep up with it. So like martial arts, just like a lot of things in life, you don't use it, you lose it. So
okay,
I
got it.
wouldn't consider like I maintained any of those skills. But yeah, at a point I was.
Man, that's deep, man. Shoot, that's something you can put on a resume.
Yeah, definitely. I'll bring the black belt to the interview too, and I'll block the door.
Right.
Thanks, I
All,
appreciate.
what
It.
you actually need is like I don't think you don't have to say it. Just the results speak for itself at that point.
Yeah, when they ask what my experience is, I'll just start breaking some wooden boards.
Yeah, I used to kick somebody's tail and got a black belt for it. Yeah, that's my that's my experience.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up, man. And I love what you said, and I want to keep it real too. So we spoke, you know, previously, man, and we talked about just being that positive light, and I remember we were talking about how it wasn't always like that. Like today, I'm blessed, but man, this week was hard. It was a difficult week, and I think people need to hear it because not everybody's going to feel like, oh, they have a blessed day. Some people will just say, they may wake up and say, man, I got to deal with this mess again. And that I think that happens a lot. Even it happens to me too. Like for those that don't know, we were talking off topic, and well, excuse me, we were talking about how hard it was this week, and I just had dealing with so much stress, and so I was figuring out a lot of problems this week, but I actually solved it right because I kept going. I just knew, through it all and all, after bad news, I just say, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out. Like that was my mentality. At that very moment when I realized that I'm not gonna say it couldn't get any lower because it obviously could have, but when you hear certain news or when you are at a certain level in your own mind psychologically, you gotta say, okay, you gotta come up or you're gonna allow this to defeat you, right? So there's that victim mentality, and then you have the victor mentality, right? And so I think it took it takes people a while sometimes to adapt the victor mentality, right? They allow life to just beat them down and be a victim. So like some people may have taken bad news and say, oh, I don't know what else to do, I'm just toss my hands with it, right? And so at that point, whatever happens happens. So I don't like to, well, at one point in my life I would have probably let that happen, but as I grew and continued to grow, I said enough is enough, right? And so I guess what I'm looking for is like what's something that you can give to the people, right? When they are at a certain level to where they're just being a victim, right? What would you tell that person to change from this victim mentality to this victor, right?
Hmm.
On self-improvement.
So that's a good one. So on victim mentality. So when we're dealing with the victim mentality, right? It tends to. There's a few ways that we can look at it actually, which is the first one I'll caveat, which is what you brought up first, is if something sucks and you're in pain and it's bad, or you're viewing it as bad, or we could just go with you're in pain. It's important to acknowledge that because what you suppress persists. And so if you just acknowledge that it sucks, like the whole proverb, right? Like, is a glass half full or half empty? It's like, well, you have half a glass of water either way, and it's okay to acknowledge that. And you can acknowledge that it's not a full glass of water. That way, in life, if you keep approaching it that it's always half full, you're probably going to be served a shit sandwich at some point and gladly chomp it down, try to convince yourself that this is actually really good, and then get mad at yourself later for not like accepting what you wanted in life, or what you should have gotten in life. So it's okay to acknowledge that things might be bad or they might hurt, and that's okay. And then from there, what you're describing with the victor mentality, what I get out of that really is like positivity, or what we would use the word confidence, meaning I trust that things will work out in the end. That could maybe be a spiritual way of looking at it, right? Like I trust that the universe will take care of me in the end, somewhere down the road. And also, I trust that I'm capable of taking care of this. So there's that element plus something called radical responsibility, which is like I take responsibility for all the components of my life, including how I feel.
Accountability.
Yeah, accountability doesn't have to be scary. There's a lot of and it can be scary, and that's okay, especially if you're trying that out for the first time or you're very new at it. I myself, I'm pretty new at it. Like, I try my best, but it can be tough. Like, I tend to fall more on the people pleaser side of relationship dynamics, and I absolutely love avoiding shit. Just love it. It's so good. It's like fine wine. But my life gets worse the more I avoid stuff. And I feel more scared and I feel more out of control. And the more I keep doing that, I keep going further and further out of control.
Further away. Yep.
Yeah. But so I don't really have too much of the victim mentality in that regard, because I feel like everything's my fault. So I kind of take the opposite side of that responsibility, where it debilitates me from taking action.
You trick yourself into having to take that action.
Yeah, so I end up not taking action because I'm like, everything's my fault. I'm such a fuck up. That's where I tend to like self-sabotage, right? So remember when we worked on positive intelligence, like my big ones are the avoider, the pleaser, and the hypervigilant. Like, everything's going to go wrong and there's nothing I can do about it and everybody hates me. That's like where my wounded child's coming at. But someone with that victim mentality, if that's where you're at, I want to introduce people to what's called the drama triangle. And we can link stuff. Like, I can send you some resources. We can link it in the description for the video.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. The drama triangle is a really cool model, because if you actually were to take this on like for a further span of time, meaning like you kept the camera running beyond just the point at which this person's moping, everyone hates me, blah, 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 you'll probably find that they complete this cycle over and over again, depending on who they're interacting with. So they'll go from victim, which is like, I am out of control of all my circumstances. Everyone hates me. Nothing's good enough. I'm seeking for someone else. I'm seeking for attention from other people by playing this role. Victims really to get attention and validation and acceptance from being like, from portraying yourself as so pathetic and so out of control and so sad that that's the only way you knew how to get that love and attention as a kid. But then you might shift over to the persecutor. So you might go from victim to the one victimizing other people. And then you might also shift over to the like savior of other people. And so we see a lot of this in online dynamics when, different groups, maybe on the political spectrum, are arguing with each other. It's like, us versus them sort of mentality, and then shifting over to victim as well. So I would say the best thing that you can do, I know this is super long-winded, but I think we covered some good ground, the best thing you can do is just start to acknowledge when you're in that space. Start to acknowledge when you're on that ride.
Bring it to the light.
Yeah, bring it to a light. You don't have to do, honestly, like that is it. Let's not even go any further than that, especially for the people that are just starting. Just bring it to the light, like, I am in this space. Where you can show yourself compassion if you're in that, because the trap might be you notice that you're being a victim and you're like, oh, I'm being a victim. I'm never going to be successful. Successful people aren't victims. Well, and you start going down like another rabbit hole of victimhood, right? Like you jumped over to another train.
A whole nother one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you were just there, now you're jumping onto a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Is being a victim likely fulfilled some needs when you were a kid? Most likely it fulfilled the need of acceptance. Meaning, if you were playing this victim, woe is me, I'm super sad, that's probably when you got your parents' attention and they would actually be nice to you, care for you, or do something to fulfill that need. So you're acting in a way that worked as a child. The thing is, now that you're an adult, it doesn't work so well. And so it's important to start recognizing that, because if you were to take that victimhood away, you would have nothing to meet that need anymore. And so we'll do anything to get our needs met, even play the victim. So until you can build a stronger foundation, built from your core where you don't need to play the victim, you're going to keep going down that route. So just start to acknowledge that, and then you can do things, and we can get into some of the tools, tips, tricks, whatever, and like longer sustaining stuff that you can do to build a stronger foundation to get those needs met.
So what I like to do, like I like to bring things. So when we say bring it to the light, is pretty much acknowledging what you're going through, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember. So what I do now is I write down all of my triggers. I write down everything that gives you that knee jerk reaction, right? So something that just that may not necessarily sit with you well. You know that you really shouldn't be triggered by anything like life, right? Life is going to happen to you whether you like it or not. You want to make sure you're dealing with it in the most healthy way. So I like to put myself in two categories, right? Because I remember we talked about if you're the let's just say who you see yourself as, right? This absolute perfect person. You know, what who you or if you don't have an identity like that, you should probably adapt an identity of what you believe or what your goal is, right? So if that goal, whatever it is, how would that person act in the same exact situation? And you can now give yourself real answers. Well, this person probably wouldn't be phased. This person may take it as humorous, right? This person may take it as they're super confident, like it doesn't really matter. So now you give yourself your own answers to how you want to deal with the trigger. So I like to do, let's say if something's triggering, I'll write it down and I'll write the truth. This is what happened. This is how I felt. Everything is real. So you put down all of your thoughts. Well, this is what I do. I put down my thoughts on that paper, right? And so I also write down the answer. So the answer is, where is this perfect person? How would they deal with this situation? Well, this person probably wouldn't care. So you have to look at that answer versus what actually happened. You would say, you know what? I don't necessarily need to do all that. That's just something that happened off the gate. But because now you have now you have a goal to shoot for, you can now have the mindset to say, maybe I shouldn't care. Maybe, or just whatever that answer is, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives you a different perspective so you can meditate on. So you
Yeah.
won't forget. I'll write it down so I don't forget. So that way I can always go back and see, you know, what had happened and how I probably would deal with it. And I remember it's funny because I did it last week. I went through one of my triggers and I saw it on accident because I have a lot of notes. And I was actually looking for something else in the process, and I just skimmed over and I said, I was like, let me just look at this real quick. And I was triggered about something that it made no sense. And I'm like, did I really react that way? But that, to me, it was funny, but it also showed growth. Because at that very moment in that time and space, I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
But now I can say, oh, nothing. It's because you went through it, you acknowledged it, like you said, bring it to the light, and now you can do as you please with it. I just chose to give a different perspective. I think perspective for me is like a lot.
Yeah.
It almost shapes my reality, to be honest with you, because I remember I was talking to, I forgot who I was talking to. Um anyway, we were talking about how someone would be. Oh man, what was the context? Man, this just happened this weekend. Oh, we were talking about aliens. There we go. We were
Alien.
talking about, yeah, no, shapeshifters. I'm sorry. We're talking about shapeshifters, right? I know I have crazy conversations, right?
I
Shout
love
out to
this.
Taylor.
Let's go.
Shout out to Taylor, man. We were talking about this, and it was so funny because she said that if she saw a shapeshifter, like, someone would probably be scared of it, right? Because that person, oh yeah, it happened on the plane. So it was a video about a girl on the plane. She saw somebody on the plane with her, like a passenger, and their face started changing, and she said, "Get me off this plane, get me off this plane." So it was a viral video, long story short.
That's yeah.
Someone
I caught
recorded
that
it.
one.
Yeah, so somebody recording, and everybody in the comments, right? So this is how you learn. The comments were like, "Oh, this girl's crazy," or whatever, right? We don't necessarily know. So long story short, it got the conversation to say, well, if a shapeshifter actually was here, how would you react, right? And so that person reacted just fearfully. They were just scared and they wanted to leave, right? That was their reality. So they asked me, they said, well, what would if a shapeshifter came to your face, what would you do? I'm like, man, look, let's just say hypothetically, if this was true, right? If this was true and this really happened, and if there's real shapeshifters in this world, let's just throw it out there, right?
Doing it.
Then, I mean, if they're already here, then they're probably already here to begin with, and we just never knew. So anybody can be a shapeshifter then, if this is the case. Hey, I could be a shapeshifter. We don't know. So
Kobe, I got something I got to fill you in on, man, about it. Something personal.
I got you.
Yeah, I wasn't going to tell you this, but come from a long lineage of shapeshifters.
See,
You
see,
know,
look, they see, and I'll probably be a shapeshifter, but I don't necessarily know how to use my powers.
that's
So
why
I
we're
look.
here.
It was funny because like the fact that the perspective that I had was like, oh, that is different. You know what? I probably wouldn't be scared anymore if that was the case.
You're just the calmest guy in the apocalypse. In the
Well,
movie Independence Day, you're like, yeah, aliens are here. It's chill.
I wouldn't say that because, like I said, we don't know if they're real. So I'm speaking from a perspective of if that were true, in my mind, if that was the case, if shapeshifters were real and I seen it, I would try to figure it out and say, what is that, right? What is this person doing? Is this a real shapeshifter? And if it's true, I would just have the perspective of, well, how long have we been shapeshifting, or why shapeshift now? If you looked a certain way now and you want to change it into something else, what makes you want to change it into something else, and how do you do it? Right?
Yeah.
That's my mentality. If I were asked that question,
Yeah,
because I
you're
don't know what it
approaching it
looked
through the
like.
lens of curiosity. You got some
There we,
questions.
there we go. I would be more
Curiosity
curious.
is the killer of anxiety. There's a lot of studies on this. True. That's why the famous book "Change Your Questions, Change Your Life." If you're ever feeling anxious, you can switch towards inquiry as a way of trying to kill that. It happens at like a very physiological level, but I found it really interesting how you mentioned like she was super scared. Obviously, you're on a plane, someone's like face starts twitching, like
Yeah,
maybe starts morphing, probably leave too. But it's interesting how you like brought that up, and then how your initial reaction would be with one of inquiry and curiosity as a way to explore and understand.
yeah, and that was just it was perspective, and so
Yeah,
that's pretty much how. And I say that to say this: I had to improve that. I wasn't always like that. Maybe back years ago, if someone asked me that, I would say, "Oh man, it probably scared me too." I would just run and leave, right? But I didn't have the perspective then that I do now.
yeah,
And I think that's the point of improvement or what it does to you. It just shows the result of the work that you put in. And
yeah.
so to improve, you have to do the work on yourself. You don't just wake up one day and just improve. I mean, you have to do something in order for you to get to this achievement. If you're gonna hold on to it, right?
You know what word I love using, like when we talk about like mental health and improvement and stuff. One word, like it really changed my perspective on it, and that's it. I call it healing, which is like a really common word that you'll hear in the space, but I call it healing in the sense that like a lot of times we don't choose our reactions, right? Like especially like fear. Like the same reason like why cavemen sought caves. It's like it's safe. And the more fearful you are, the smaller your world gets, the more like confident you get in your worldview.
Mm,
But it's like your mind shrinking. And it's like, no, everyone sucks, everything's scary, like don't do this, that's not how this works. You find as you expand, as you heal, as you start to grow, as you improve, you actually start to get more curious because you're more willing to take risks to see like how things actually turn out. As we were talking about like victim, we could apply this to a variety of different ways, like triggering. You mentioned being triggered. It's like, you had mentioned for whatever reason that moment you weren't triggered, but like when you were, it's like your body got hijacked, and it's like you're operating from a survival mechanism. And I think a lot of what healing or improving does is it helps to break that cycle.
there you go.
Um,
There you go.
and I think it's really important because it's like whenever we talk about this, sometimes it's too scary for people to even attempt, or we're so quick to be judgmental of ourselves and others. And it's like, listen, like we're all just like scared trying to figure it out. Like it's better than that too, but like ultimately, a lot of times people are just doing the best with the hand that they were dealt, and they're trying to make it through there. So if you're someone who's watching and you're trying to make some changes, just remember that the way that you act, the way that you do, or the reason you do, probably wasn't your choice and it's related to a survival mechanism like flee, fight, or freeze. And that a lot of your journey in doing the work is going to be to break that cycle. And then beyond that, there's a whole world of riches that you can that you can get for yourself. And maybe you too can meet a shapeshifter and be like, I wonder how the hell you do that instead of running away in terror.
Hey, no, I'm gonna tell you, I definitely am a shapeshifter, right? I had to transform, this being into a different, or more
That's
elevated
true,
species.
man.
You know what
I
I'm
like
saying?
that.
I'm a shapeshifter with my hair. Like I'll take this out, man, and it's just like, look like Black Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna shapeshift into a whole. I'm about to turn to the Christ consciousness. You
Christ gosh. I love that, dude. That's
Yeah,
so
no,
great.
I am. I feel like everybody's a shapeshifter. Some people they just put on a wig and just be a shapeshifter.
Yeah,
Halloween's a shapeshifter. I don't know.
that's
No.
mad funny, dude. Are you doing Black Jesus for Halloween?
You know what? Oh, I don't think I could do it for Halloween. I don't think I could
No.
do it.
Okay.
It was funny though because I remember I went to ECU. So ECU down here is like one of the party schools. Shout out to ECU. And Halloween is like one of the big things they have down at ECU, right? So we went down there in college, it's drinking, partying, whatever, right? So I remember one time there was a guy there who was dressed up as a preacher for Halloween.
That's mad funny.
He was blessing girls with like instead of like holy water, like he had like a bottle of alcohol, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was clearly just he went left field, right? But it was funny. It reminded me of that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to ECU.
Shout out, man. Well, look, man, we appreciate you, man. This was a good one. You
Yeah,
definitely made
this
some
is
good
mad
game
fun.
on this one.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
Nah, for real, man. We appreciate you. And yo, I hope y'all took some notes, right? And if y'all missed this live, go back on my YouTube, Rise and Rise Academy. Go to my Facebook, Rise and Rise Academy. I'll post it, clip it on my IG so you guys can see it. Aaron, he gave great game. Everything he's done is, like I said, it's documented. He's done research on this stuff. Everything's been backed up by the necessary, doctors and everything else. So all this stuff is real that we're actually speaking of, right? So it's not anything that, pretty much, long story short, you can improve. There's ways to improve. How everybody gets there, though, is their own specific path. And I've always said this: you want to engineer your life. You want to reverse engineer, see where you're wanting to go, reverse how to get there to meet where you are, so you can improve, and then get over that next hump. And that's one way we want to make sure that we improve here at the Rise and Rise Academy. You dig? So, shout out to you, Aaron, man, for coming through.
Hey, thank you,
Big
man.
blessings. And look, when I exit, I always like to exit, with like a mantra chant, right? So I always say, when faced with an obstacle, what we do, the guest person will always say, we rise and rise, right? So I'm gonna
I
have
got
you
you.
say that, right? So when we're faced with an obstacle, what we do.
Rise and rise.
Yes, sir. I appreciate everybody for coming out, man. This is a podcast about improving yourself. That's the title. Go check us out on YouTube. Oh, and one more thing, Aaron, where can they follow you at if they want to reach you for anything?
They can follow me at. Uh, I don't have any follows. You can. I'll post my latest Instagram that I have.
Yeah.
I actually have one that I made to do AI art, so it's not related to anything that we talked about today, but it's the one on
Okay.
my phone.
Well,
And,
there we go.
yeah, if
All we need.
anyone, if you guys that are watching, if you have any questions or want any resources or anything, just hit me up on that, and
Facts.
I'll be able to see it.
Man, look, I appreciate it, man. Everybody, thank you guys for joining in. We'll clip it up. And peace. Have a great Wednesday. And let's get to the bag, y'all. All right.
Later, dude.